What I'd really like to talk about now is the economics of happiness. When we talk about a 10-year plan, there are lots of little pieces that go into that 10-year plan. And the 10-year plan includes how we're going to evaluate everything to update the plan. It includes transportation, work, leisure, community, family, friends, spiritual practices, consumption, basic living, food, and health. So these are the components that we're going to fill in the blank when we're going to make this plan. And so our goal for right now is to do something called setting the course. And you'll be able to look at that online, I think, or you'll be able to see like a PowerPoint so you can follow along. And when we talk about setting the course, what we're doing is saying we want to understand where it is we plan to go and how we're going to get there. That's the mission and the vision. But the real important part of that is not really that we actually get to the goal, it's how we get to that goal. How honest are we in how we're consuming and what we're consuming? How honest are we in how we're transporting ourselves and transporting others? How honest are we in the work we're doing? Is it meaningful work, or is it totally baloney and it's taking away from everything in the universe and not really going to provide for us in the long run? So we're going to talk about setting the course, and this is rooted in the concept of if you wanted to build an alternative kind of building, but it really applies to anything you're going to do around a homestead. So the first question that I think you really want to ask yourself and answer and write down the answer is, what will I need to sacrifice? Or if you've already sacrificed things and you're already on your plan, then what is it that you did sacrifice? So, Jay, what do you think you sacrificed by being here?
Well, a lot of people will ask that, especially when they say, they come here on tour or something and they say, oh, this would be very hard to live this way. And I think about this because both of us were very successful in what would be considered the American dream, making lots of money and having position. And for me, I gave that up to come live in a house made of trash and deal with dogs and goats and bee stings or whatever. I don't honestly feel like I've ever given up anything at all. And I think that's important. It's important to me to understand that. It is a matter of being aware of my life. And I don't remember who said it, but one of the greatest tragedies is living life unaware. And being aware of where your water comes from, where your food comes from, when bluebirds come back and need to have the nest, things like that have so much more value. When we talk about economics, we generally talk in monetary terms. And monetary terms are probably the least important in the economic equation. We use money as a tool to become happy, yet it's happiness that we're seeking. So you don't need the money, you don't need the tool, you need the happiness. And so it really changes the focus of I am not pursuing for the pursuit of money, I am pursuing for the pursuit of happiness, for the pursuit of well-being. And when we say happiness, we're usually saying contentment. Not, oh, I'm giggly and every day I'm saying, singing Kumbaya and dancing with the bluebirds. It's more like I feel at peace with how my life is going and I feel comfortable with what I'm doing and I'm enjoying the activity of being alive. To me, that is the economics of happiness.
The next thing that you're going to want to write down the answer to is, what excuses have I used for not setting or completing my goals in the past? And this is really important because lots of people have lots of bullshit. They got it out there. They're going to do this. Hey, that's a great idea. If they did 1/10 of the great ideas they had, they would have everything they ever dreamed of, and so would everybody else around them. So there are lots of obstacles. You can say money's an obstacle. Okay, I think we can get around that. even though that may sound very white middle class of me. I think there are possibilities. And we're talking about that a little bit now and later. But I think if I don't decide what my excuses are, I'm never going to figure out how to get past those excuses. The next thing is, what 5 people can I call on who will help and support me? And this is super, super, super valuable to recognize who are those people. And a lot of times when I use this form with people, they'll look at me and they say, I don't have anybody. That is probably the saddest commentary on this culture. So we have to have people who are going to support us, especially if we want to set off doing something as weird as 2 people building a house out of trash and all the other stuff that we do that people think is absolutely insane. And it's just what has to happen. So we know we have each other. And Jay doesn't come from a background of doing what we do. I don't come from a background of doing what we do, yet we've been successful in every one of these categories. So, you've got to know who are those people. And most of the time, and I'm sorry to say this, but I hear it all the time, the person that does not make the list is the partner of the person making the list. So it might be the wife, the person you live with, it might be your parents, the people who are funding you right now. You absolutely have to get that list so it's honest. And those are the people you're going to call on. Those are the people that are going to show up when you say, I got a case of beer and I need you to help me pound 20 tires because I want to make a wall. They're going to show up. They're going to be so cool because you gave them an opportunity. So what are your greatest fears? And this one is big because fear is the number one wall that we put up, and we're mostly afraid of things that never happen.
I mean, fear's legitimate, and you have to try to overcome them. What's helped me, because I think I'm a more fearful person than Annie.
That's funny. That's really funny.
Well, you're fearful of animals getting sick. I'm fearful of economic devastation. So and it's usually. I think it was a quote from Mark Twain where he said, I'm an old man and I've had many troubles, most of which never happened. So when I think about economic issues, I realize I've been living independently on my own since I was 17 years old. And yet during that period of time, I've managed to pay my bills. So I will probably continue to do so into the future. So the things that you are fearful of are usually tiny little distractions. When it comes to the end of your life, you're probably going to regret the things you didn't do, not the things you did. And if this is your dream of living on a homestead, then do it. When we talked about, I would say, well, we can't get insurance. How are we going to get insurance? And Annie said, I don't want to live my life worrying about that. I don't want to work to pay an insurance guy. That is not what's motivating me. If we run into a problem, we'll deal with it. That's all any of us can hope for out of life, is when you run into a problem, I have the tools within my own mental toolbox to deal with it at the time. To worry about it ahead of time is a waste of time and energy.
One of the obstacles that lots of us face is we don't really know the rules. We don't really know, we know what we've been taught, but we don't really know the rules of society. And this is what holds us back a lot. And that's partly why we wanted to do this kind of talk, because we wanted to be able to say, look, these are some of the insights that we've gained. We know them partly because we have been in a position of privilege, but we also know it by trying and failing and getting back up and saying we're going to go forward. So it's really important to recognize what are those obstacles. So if you don't understand what the rules are, like we get asked all the time, well, we want to know, what about zoning? Okay, well, what stopped you from going online and looking it up? What stopped you from calling up the right people? And here's the list of the right people to find out what that zoning is. So there are many obstacles and we need to identify them. So I was living in France and Jay was getting ready to join me. And we had a very stressful time in our lives. And it just felt like everything had been erased in our lives. My career, our home, everything had just sort of gone away. And now we're going to end up in Europe. and it was incredibly stressful. One day I got a call from the head of the school where our granddaughter had gone to school, Sister Roberta, and she said, I know you're having a really terrible time and everybody is feeling very bad for you, but I want to tell you a story of something that just happened. And it was the story of a young mother who had a 2-year-old child, and she was on the phone, and she looked up, and the child had opened the door and left. And he had walked down to the pond, and he fell in, and he drowned during the time that she was unaware that he was missing. And of course, that was crushing to hear. I didn't really know the people. But the story became really powerful in my life because it said to me that, you know what, as long as we have each other, the three of us are together, and we are able to walk and talk, and we're not dead, we can do anything we need to do. And that became sort of the basis. So it wasn't, I've got this, I have this, I'm living in this incredible house in France, I'm doing whatever. It really is still today about the fact that the most important thing is that we have each other at a very basic level. And as long as we have that, we can do these things. We may not do them in the grandiose way we want to, but we can do them. The next thing on the list is what are the risks involved in what it is you want to do. So if you want to be a homesteader, you want to get a different kind of job or a new kind of training, what are those risks? And be honest about what that involves. Because there may be some short-term risks, but there may be some really long-term risks. And that's vital to write it down.
For me, I was actually in quite a well-paid, to the outside world important position. And to come to this decision meant we needed to simply walk away from it. It was almost a deconstruction of everything I had been working towards professionally. And when we were at a ski lift, actually, this was sort of that moment, that life-changing moment where we were at a ski lift in Spain, ready to go up on top of a mountain. And Annie looked at me and she said, I'm going to kick myself for saying this, but you have to quit your job. And I said, oh, shit. You said it out loud, you know? And she goes, well, it's sucking out your soul. And I thought, oh, no. And of course, my reaction was, and I knew she was right. That's why it was
say that again. I love to hear that.
I just have that. I have that tattooed on my arm.
Oh,
I
please,
knew she was right.
Please do that. So, that would be so good.
So anyway, it was a matter of deconstructing, knowing this was the truth. And my response, of course, through many months was, well, what happens? What happens?
You said, what will I do?
What will I do?
Yeah.
I'm giving up my job. I'm giving up my position. I'm giving up the money, and I'm giving up security. That was, to me, the big thing. I have insurance. I have a well-paid job. I have a position. I'm giving up security. And Annie's response was, there is no such thing as security. It's all an illusion. You can go in tomorrow and be fired. You can get hit by a bus and the insurance won't pay for it. Everything that you are giving the label of security is an illusion. You have no security in this world. The only security you have is of the moment. And if you're living your life in a place you don't want to be for the illusion of security, then I think when your life comes to an end, you'll have looked back and said, I wasted a great deal of my life.
I see people who are like preparing for the apocalypse, and they think we're like that too. And I assure you, we are not. We are living each day because we have it to live. And we're doing the best we can with the resources we have, and we're being honest about what we have to work with. And if that's preparing for the apocalypse, then so be it. But what it's really doing is saying, look, I only have my own path. I cannot influence your path. So my path is I want to walk a path of peace. I want to share what I have, and I want to make wise investments in that sharing of whatever it is. And I think that's why we're doing this class with you. That's why we're sharing some of the stories, because the reality is we just have this moment and we want to share it with you.